two trucks, built the same week at the same Ohio plant for the same season of the same show. Their serial numbers sit one digit apart, 288161, 288162. For 40 years, nobody thought twins like that could end up anywhere but together. They didn't. One sat motionless for 20 years, forgotten in a Georgia yard, its engine seized and its paint gone chalky under the sun. The other was bought twice, once as the real thing back in 1980, and once, 4 decades later, by a man who had no idea that's what he was buying. This is the story of two identical Kenworth Aerodynes built for BJ and the Bear, and how they spent 4 decades as strangers before anyone realized they'd ever been twins at all. BJ and the Bear ran on NBC from February 1979 to May 1981, arriving right at the peak of America's CB radio and trucking craze, the same handful of years that gave the country Convoy, Smokey and the Bandit, and Movin' On. Greg Evigan played Billy Joe McKay, an independent trucker hauling freight across the country with a chimpanzee named Bear riding shotgun, solving somebody's problem in a new town every week before rolling on to the next one. The truck was a red and white Kenworth K100C Aerodyne, a cab-over with a raised sleeper roof Kenworth had introduced just 3 years earlier in 1976, built to give a driver 7 feet of standing headroom behind the wheel, the first factory sleeper cab in the industry to offer it. Kenworth didn't just supply a truck and walk away. Once NBC picked the show up for a full season, the company leaned into the exposure, treating 3 seasons of primetime television as a rolling advertisement for the Aerodyne. According to Paul Sagehorn, one of the 2 men whose names anchor this story, the production got something close to a brand new truck almost every year it was on the air. 2 Aerodynes built in 1978, 1 more in 1979, and for the 3rd and final season, 2 more, built specifically, purposefully, for the close-up beauty and glamorous shots the earlier trucks were starting to look too road-worn for. 5 trucks total wore BJ McKay's paint scheme across 3 seasons. Only 2 of them were built from the ground up at Kenworth's Chillicothe, Ohio plant for that exact purpose, in that order, one right after the other. Those are the 2 this story follows. If a truck can carry a show's entire identity for 3 seasons and still be recognized on sight 45 years later, it's worth knowing what happened to the ones still out there. That's what this channel does, traces vehicles like this one past the credits to wherever they actually ended up. Subscribe to stay with it. Hey, real quick before we keep going. There's a car burned into your head right now from some movie you saw 20 years ago. I built something for that. It's called the Hollywood Car Vault. 25 of the most legendary cars and trucks in movie and TV history. Real illustrated art for everyone, and the real story behind it. Not the version everyone half remembers, the actual history. What Hollywood faked, what happened to the real ones, and what they're worth today. Tap through it right on your phone. No app, no download. And it keeps growing. New rides get added later, free for everyone already in. $17 one time, links in the description if you want in. All right, back to it. The raised Aerodyne roof wasn't chosen for the show because it looked dramatic on camera, though it did and still does. Kenworth built it to solve a driver comfort problem. Long-haul truckers needed somewhere to actually stand up inside a sleeper cab, not fold themselves into one after a 14-hour day. The show inherited that shape and made it iconic almost by accident, turning a factory comfort feature, headroom nothing more glamorous than that, into the silhouette an entire generation of kids would recognize instantly on sight 45 years later. For Season 3, Kenworth built 2 Aerodynes back-to-back at the Ohio plant, serial numbers 288161 and 288162, rolling off the line within days of each other. New trucks, purpose-built, identical in every way a factory floor could make 2 trucks identical. Consecutive VINs, same order, same intent. Both trucks appear together in Season 3's 2-part opener, Fast and Furious, and again in the crossover episodes with The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, a show that inherited its own cast connection from BJ and the Bear's first season, when Claude Akins played a recurring sheriff before spinning off into his own series entirely. From there, the productions split their screen time. 288161 turns up in A Bear in the Hand and Seven Lady Captives. 288162 appears in Detective Finger, I presume, and Intercepted Pass. On camera, only someone who knew exactly what to look for could tell them apart. A different shaped CB microphone clipped to the dash, a different colored trim running along the bunk. Off camera, that difference wouldn't matter to anyone for another 38 years. Season 3 wasn't the whole story, though. The earlier seasons ran their own trucks hard and ran them differently. One 1978 Aerodyne pulled double duty as the polished hero truck, the one audiences saw most, the one that got raffled off between Season 2 and Season 3 on May 26, 1980, and disappeared into a private ownership chain for the next 24 years. A second 1978 truck survived as a dedicated stunt double, distinguishable by a Detroit engine where the others ran Cummins, and by turn signals mounted in a different spot on the cab entirely. That stunt truck took a beating the hero trucks never had to. In one Season 2 episode, it went undercover entirely, repainted black with washable paint for a single storyline, then stripped back to red and gold once filming wrapped. Its Season 2 counterpart didn't get that mercy. A nearly identical 1979 stunt truck was driven straight through a biker bar for the episode Siege, destroyed on camera in a single take, one of the few Aerodynes in this entire 5-truck fleet whose fate nobody has to guess at, because it happened in front of a working camera crew and never drove again. Before any of these 5 trucks existed, there was a 6th. The pilot movie, which aired in October 1978, used a different Kenworth entirely, not yet an Aerodyne, and what happened to that truck depends entirely on who's telling the story. One account, passed down through toy truck collector circles for over a decade, says the pilot truck was scrapped in 2008, 30 years after it first appeared on screen. A separate account, from a collector who has spent years tracing individual VINs across the entire run of the series, tells it differently, that the pilot truck was a 1974 Kenworth K123 and that it simply disappeared sometime between the pilot shoot and the start of Episode 1, vanishing so completely that production had to promote a different 1978 Aerodyne into the hero role just to keep filming on schedule for the regular series. Both stories can't be true. Neither has ever been documented. The truck that started this entire fleet may have ended its life quietly in a scrapyard in 2008, or it may have vanished without a trace before the very first regular episode ever aired, and 45 years later, nobody chasing this story has closed that gap. It stays open. What's certain is what happened to the 2 Season 3 trucks once Hollywood was finished with them. And it's here that this stops being one story and becomes 2, running in parallel for decades, unaware of each other before anyone thought to connect them again. Truck 288262 left Los Angeles in 1982, a year after the show's cancellation, and went straight to work. An owner-operator leased it to haul meat out of Missouri. It passed to a man named John Linkhart, then to Kofer Brothers Lumber out of Tucker, Georgia. In 1986, James Duncan of Douglasville, Georgia, bought the truck and ran it for 3 years, until 1989 when the engine blew for the 3rd time, somewhere around 442,000 miles on the odometer. Duncan parked it where it sat. It didn't move again for 18 years. In 2007, Paul Sagehorn, a Wisconsin trucker who'd grown up watching the show as a kid, picked up a rumor on an old MSN fan message board. Somebody out there still owned one of the real trucks. The lead traced back to Duncan. Sagehorn's father, Craig, wanted to see it in person first, but a scheduling conflict got in the way. Craig had a load to pick up the same day he'd arranged to meet, and the truck sat unseen a little longer. A few days later, Paul made the call himself, and a deal came together over the phone. They drove down and found the Kenworth exactly where it had died, 440,000 miles on the odometer, parts missing off the Cummins, 20 years of Georgia weather baked into the paint. They bought it and hauled it home to Sparta, Wisconsin. They had 3 months. Paul had already committed to bringing the truck to a car show in Iola, Wisconsin, with Greg Evigan there in person to sign autographs. And then, as these things go, time got away from him. Father and son worked 16-hour days some stretches to make the deadline, stripping the truck to its frame and cab and building it back up almost from nothing. They made it, with the truck rolling into Iola looking close to the day it left the factory. The engine that finally powered it came from an unexpected place. Sagehorn pulled a Cummins 444 out of a different show truck he owned at the time, Sonny Pruitt's Kenworth W900A from Movin' On, before selling that truck on to a buyer doing a full period-correct restoration of his own. That borrowed engine ran for over a decade, until 2019 when it let go on Interstate 80 in Nebraska, on Craig's way to a truck show in Reno. The mechanics who towed it in didn't recognize the truck at first, until they found out what it was and started pulling up old episodes on their phones between jobs. It's since been replaced with a period-correct Cummins 400 Big Cam, matched to its original 13-speed transmission, and the truck runs today with roughly 600,000 miles behind it. Craig Sagehorn died in March of 2022 at 81. Outside of the truck, he ran a hardware store in Sparta for years. Didn't even get his CDL until he was 61. Once he had it, he liked to take the Kenworth out for 5 and 6 weeks at a stretch, hauling loads down to New Orleans and back, more or less the way B.J. McKay might have, if B.J. McKay had ever needed to make a living doing it. Truck 288161 took a stranger road entirely, and for most of it, nobody was looking for it at all. It also left Hollywood in 1982, passing first through a flatbed operation, then 2 transport companies, one out of Hidalgo, Texas, another out of Memphis, Tennessee, before landing years later with a man named Chris Hart in Cottondale, Florida. None of that chain of ownership was known to anyone chasing the BJ and the Bear story, because for most of those years, nobody outside a small circle of fans was chasing it at all. John Amstutz, a collector out of Wind Gap, Pennsylvania, had spent years running his own tribute to the show instead, a 1984 Kenworth built as a close replica by Craig Sagehorn himself for an earlier owner who later sold it on. Amstutz bought that replica in 2012, not knowing at the time that the man who'd built it was the same man restoring one of the real trucks a few states away. In March of 2020, Amstutz sold that replica at a truck show out of Georgia. A month later, wanting a new project to build another tribute truck from, he found a listing on Facebook Marketplace, a Kenworth sitting in Cottondale, Florida. He bought it sight unseen from Chris Hart, who was selling it while taking on full custody of his children after a divorce. As far as Amstutz knew when he made the deal, he'd bought scrap metal potential, a donor truck for a fake. On the drive home, things started not adding up for a random truck picked off Marketplace. He began calling around, chasing the VIN of the only other known Season 3 Aerodyne still out there, the one connected distantly to the very replica he'd just sold. It matched. John Amstutz had gone shopping for parts to build a fake and driven home with the real thing. 2 of the last purpose-built Aerodynes from the show exist today because 2 men, one in Wisconsin, one in Pennsylvania, refused to let a rusted-out truck stay a rusted-out truck. Paul Sagehorn's is fully restored and shown regularly at truck shows across the country. John Amstutz's is currently under its own restoration, the second real truck from this fleet now getting the treatment the first one got back in 2007. Keeping a 45-year-old cab-over Kenworth alive isn't casual ownership. It means sourcing period-correct engines when the originals finally give out, tracking down VIT interior trim in saddle brown diamond tuck, finding the right wheels and the right low-profile rubber to sit under a truck built before any of that was standard. None of it sits on a shelf at a regular truck stop. It's registry connections, other collectors, and a fair amount of luck. The same kind of luck that put a real 1980 Aerodyne in front of a man who thought he was buying scrap. For collectors who can't own the real thing but still want a piece of it, the die-cast and model kit market has kept the Aerodyne alive in miniature for decades. Limited-run 1-43 replicas painted in the exact red, white, and gold of the show truck, all the way down to a full 1-25 scale kit for anyone who wants to build one by hand, rivet by rivet, at their own kitchen table. Sourcing details on both, link in pinned comment. 2 trucks like this, with a story this specific, always have more to them than one video can hold. The full VIN history across all 5 trucks, what's actually known about the ones still unaccounted for, and the pilot truck mystery nobody has ever closed. That conversation is happening inside the community for anyone who wants to go further than this. The strangest part of this story was never the barn find, and it was never the restoration. It's that the man who eventually owned the second real truck found his way to it through a replica built by the same family that would go on to save the first real truck, years before Amstutz had any idea a second one still existed at all. 2 trucks, built inseparable, 1 week apart on the same factory floor, spent 40 years as strangers scattered across 3 states. They're only sitting in the same story again now because 2 men who'd never met each other kept refusing to let go of something they couldn't fully explain why they loved.